president even spoke, said they would undo his gun control action. But even Obamacare, his signature initiative, it was passed legislatively, but it's been propped up by a series of executive orders that can also be undone. His Iranian deal was done as an executive action, so it could bypass Congress. That can be undone. His immigration action on amnesty was done by executive action. That can be undone. His national security initiatives have mostly been done through executive orders. That can be undone. Everything he's touting on the campaign trail and across the country were done by executive actions that can be as easily undone by the next president, and will if it's a Republican.
And Chris, on the other side of course, around the world with foreign policy, particularly with respect to how we deal with the #1 issue in America now, terrorism and our safety. Another great article today, this by Brett Stevens in the Journal, says America's year of living dangerously. 2016 rogue states will take a hammer to the soft plaster of Obama's resolve. Is it going to be that bad?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. If I did, I'd be up in New York making a lot of money on Wall Street. As it is, I'm simply a
But you're a
national
military expert, though, Chris. I mean, have these guys been emboldened? Do you feel like ISIS is emboldened? Do you think Iran, which would shoot a missile thousands just within 1,000 yards of our battleship, do you think China building man-made islands to intimidate their neighbors, do you feel like all the bad actors in the world, are they intimidated by this president, or are they going to trample all over us this year?
I'll simply say our allies no longer trust us, our enemies no longer fear us. The idea that the Iranians could shoot a rocket 1,000 feet from a United States aircraft carrier is just ridiculous. It's unthinkable. But the only reason it happened is because they no longer fear any retaliation. The legacy I see right now from a strategic perspective is this. The United States Navy is the smallest it's been since the 1930s. Iraq is a nation state in complete disrepair and decay. Syria is a safe haven for both state sponsors of terror and foreign terrorist organizations. There isn't a single place across the Middle East or the Pacific Rim where we are in a better strategic position today than we were 8 years ago. So to me, I look at it and say we've got a lot of work to rebuild our standing in the world, both with our allies and with our enemies.
Steve, listen, I know you're a Republican, but do you think if there was some sort of major epiphany overnight at the White House, it would even be time to help repair all of these things?
I don't think so. Look, I remember minutes after Ronald Reagan was sworn into office, the Iranians let the hostages go. They knew what was coming. Peace through strength, Charles. Look, the last guest was right. Our enemies don't fear us. Our friends don't respect us. The Iranians are making their moves. The Chinese are making their moves. Putin certainly has made his move. My concern is, what about ISIS and these terrorists now making a move here in the homeland? That is my concern. The battle will not be in the desert. The battle's going to be in the streets of this country if we don't wake up.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. Both Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Wildlife refuge remains very tense at this very moment. Armed protesters today saying that they're in it for the, quote, long haul. Fox Business' Dan Springer here with the latest. Dan.
Yeah, Charles, it's very little movement, if any, today. Occasionally you'll see a vehicle go past that guard down the hill to where these anti-government folks are holed up. They'll be taking them food, but essentially the stalemate continues, even as opposition seems to be growing against their tactics. We heard from the sheriff yesterday. He said that he certainly thinks that they should go, that they're peaceful protests ended when they took over these federal government buildings, which is just down the hill from me. And yet Ammon Bundy, who's the leader of this group, held a news conference today saying his group has support from local ranchers who have been negatively impacted by government overreach when it comes to federal land management. Bundy says that he has a plan, but he was vague and he took no questions.
It is our goal to get the logger back to logging, to get the rancher back to ranching, to get the miner back to mining, the farmer back to farming, and to jumpstart this economy in Harney County so that they can see their roads again filled with industry.
The nearest town is Burns, 30 miles away. We noticed an increase in law enforcement at a command center, which is located in a school building. There was no heavy vehicles, no heavy equipment, but a lot of different agencies, and according to a source, about 20 federal agents are there. They seem content at this point to wait this out. We spoke with a lot of people who live around here. Almost all of them view these activists as outsiders who, make some really good points, but went too far.
We don't want them here. We didn't ask them to come here. We like our refuge. We want it left alone.
I think their message is correct, but the method that they did is totally wrong.
Now, a community meeting has been set for 4 o'clock tomorrow to give the folks around here a chance to say what's on their mind. It may put additional pressure on these anti-government groups to get out of here. Right now, though, they are still, as I said, just down that hill. We think about 2 or 3 dozen of them. Charles?
Dan, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Back with me, Rod Wheeler, Steve Rogers, Eric Guster. And, guys, I'll say right off the bat, I think the federal government owns way too much land. I don't understand it. I think the Bureau of Land Management, they are bullies, and I think what's happened to our ranchers is a shame. But I think everyone universally agrees that what the Bundy group has done has been overreach. But, Rod, this is what I'm concerned about. We're forgetting about the Hammonds. I mean, they reported for jail. How the hell do you go to jail? You already did your sentence. You go home and someone says, go back, and they're getting lost in all of this.
Right. This is really a quagmire for the government. The government is going to have to try to figure this out, Charles. There are no easy answers to what's going on out there in Oregon. And, I think they're just going to have to go in and take those ranchers out of there. I agree with the ranchers, actually. I really do. And I agree with you, Charles, when you talk about how the government has overreached in terms of the land. But, you can't violate the law. And the law in the state of Oregon has made it clear that that land belongs to the federal government. So they're going to have to just battle it out in court.
Here's the thing. This thing obviously has touched a lot of nerves. Yesterday, there was a tweet storm, Montel Williams versus the world. And one of his replies, he said, then let's give them some, put this down using the National Guard with shoot to kill orders. Steve Rogers, Montel Williams saying shoot to kill. To get, let's not pussyfoot around with these guys. Go in there right now.
He's an armchair general that you go back to his talk show to suggest that the United States military be used to shoot and kill American protesters is way, way out of line.
But what would you say? Someone says they're armed protesters, and they've already said that they're willing to use violence to meet violence.
Look, if they open fire on the police, then there's justification for the police to use the force necessary to put it down. But they have not done that. I have never heard Montel Williams say, send the National Guard into cities where gangs have taken control of. And the fact of the matter is, right now, it's a peaceful protest. They're armed. The government knows how to negotiate. Police know how to do their job. We don't need armchair generals to add fuel to the fire.
Eric calls them terrorists, though.
I love when people say they're peaceful protests. Peaceful protests were in Ferguson. Peaceful protests were in the Mall of America, protesting different issues.
You're saying when people were throwing the Molotov cocktails and all that stuff?
You had armed guards facing off with unarmed protesters. That's the problem. That shows the way the U.S. government treats African Americans and other groups totally different.
Eric, is not Montel Williams suggesting
to use... I'm talking about
he is suggesting an act of terrorism by the government to put down Americans.
That's an act of terrorism. When you go into a federal building and you take over and you say, if you come in, I will shoot you.
Look,
those are
they're
terrorists.
wrong. I agree they're wrong.
Okay, let me ask you
but the fact of the matter is...
Muslim, would you say the same thing?
They're wrong. I don't look at color. If they're wrong, they're wrong. But Eric, to suggest to use the United States military to kill American citizens is wrong. It's an act of terrorism.
I didn't say go in and kill them.
He did.
They should use military action. Absolutely.
Why? You got capable police officers who are
But Eric,
let 150 black guys go on the Brooklyn post office and take it over and say, we're going to sit in this post office until you put us out.
There's no immediate threat to anyone there. It's out in the wilderness. Yes, they do have weapons.
There wasn't one at Mall of America either, but they had armed guards there.
Well, but there was no military force used in the Mall of America. In fact, most people left the Mall of America.
Riot police?
Right. Now,
riot police, when you have riot police meeting people who had no guns, no weapons, in a silent, quiet protest, that is unused.
I think it's a stretch. I think it's a stretch to certainly say the terrorists, and I'll let Rod chime in, but we know what happened in Baltimore. We know what happened in a lot of other cities, and it turned extraordinarily violent and ugly.
Absolutely. It was completely different from what we see in Oregon. These individuals in Oregon are very organized. They're not trying to be there for a fight. They do have their weapons, and I think the government will be able to work it out with them. Baltimore and Ferguson was a completely different story, guys.
All right, guys, we got to leave it. We got to leave it.
They were unarmed, and then they showed up with tanks. Yeah, it's a totally different story. Absolutely.
And, of course, unfortunately, the crowd justified the use of those tanks.
And you don't suggest to kill American citizens.
The producers have gone crazy. They're all in my ear, guys. That was some beautiful, passionate stuff. We probably could pick it up a little bit later, but we also want to talk about America because